The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete floor of my garage. I'd been under the hood of my battered Ford pickup for 3 hours, trying to coax life back into an engine that had seen better decades. The fluorescent light above flickered like it was having a seizure, casting dancing shadows across the tools scattered on my workbench. My phone buzzed on the metal counter, the sound echoing in the cramped space. I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and glanced at the screen. A text from Lena, my wife of 7 years. "Relax, I'll be back in a week. Girls' trip to the lake. Don't wait up." I stared at those words for a long moment, feeling something cold and sharp twist in my gut. Girls' trip. Right. Lena hadn't mentioned any girls' trip yesterday when she packed her designer luggage and kissed my cheek with those perfectly glossed lips. She'd mumbled something about a real estate conference, but her story kept changing like the weather in our little Rust Belt town of Millbrook. The garage door was still open, letting in the humid August air that carried the scent of withering leaves and industrial decay. Our neighborhood wasn't much to look at. Rows of small houses with peeling paint and chain-link fences, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, whether you wanted them to or not. I heard footsteps on the gravel driveway and looked up to see Mirai, Lena's younger sister, walking toward me with 2 bottles of beer in her hands. She wore faded jeans and a tank top, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Where Lena was all polish and perfection, Mirai was rough around the edges, real in a way that her sister had forgotten how to be. "Thought you might need this," she said, holding out one of the bottles. "Saw the light on and figured you were still wrestling with that piece of junk." "Thanks." I twisted off the cap and took a long pull. The beer was ice cold and tasted like salvation. "What brings you by? Thought you were heading back to Chicago tomorrow." Mirai shrugged and leaned against my workbench, her eyes avoiding mine. Change of plans. Decided to stick around for a few more days. Lena seemed pretty eager to get me out of the house, so I figured I'd hang around just to annoy her. "She's not here," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand. Off on some mysterious girls' trip that she forgot to mention until she was already packed. Something flickered across Mirai's face. Surprise, maybe, or something darker. She took a sip of her beer and studied me with those sharp green eyes that ran in the family. "Girls' trip, huh?" Her voice carried a note I couldn't quite identify. "That's funny. She told me she was going to a work conference in the city." The wrench in my other hand suddenly felt heavier. "Work conference?" "Yeah, some big real estate thing. Said she might get promoted if she played her cards right." Mirai's expression grew thoughtful. "Of course, knowing my sister, she's probably playing more than just cards." I set down my beer and looked at her carefully. Mirai and Lena had always had a complicated relationship. Part sibling rivalry, part genuine dislike. Mirai was the black sheep of the family, the one who dropped out of college to become a tattoo artist, who rode motorcycles and dated musicians. Lena was the golden child, the one who'd married well and climbed the social ladder of our small town with the determination of a mountain climber. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. Mirai finished her beer and set the empty bottle on my workbench with a sharp clink. "Nothing. Just that my sister's always been good at telling people what they want to hear." She paused, then looked at me directly. "Cole, you're a good guy. Better than she deserves, if you want my honest opinion." Before I could respond, she was walking back toward her motorcycle parked at the curb. The engine roared to life, and she disappeared into the night, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the smell of motor oil. I pulled out my phone and stared at Lena's text again. Something about it bothered me, beyond the obvious lies about her destination. The tone was wrong, too casual, too dismissive, like she was talking to an employee instead of her husband. On impulse, I opened the camera app and took a selfie. I looked exactly like what I was, a 34-year-old mechanic with grease under his fingernails and doubt in his eyes. But I smiled anyway, the kind of smile that didn't reach my eyes, and typed out a response. "Relax, no one's waiting for you." I hit send before I could think better of it. The garage felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in like they were trying to squeeze the air from my lungs. I grabbed another beer from the mini fridge in the corner and sat down on an overturned crate, staring at the mess of my life spread out before me. Lena and I had met at Murphy's bar 8 years ago. She was slumming it with some college friends, playing pool and pretending to be impressed by my stories about fixing cars and weekend boxing matches at the local gym. I should have known then that I was just a phase for her, a walk on the wild side before she settled down with someone more appropriate. But she'd seemed different back then, or maybe I just wanted her to be different. So she laughed at my jokes and didn't mind getting her hands dirty when I taught her how to change oil. For a brief, shining moment, I thought we understood each other. The wedding was small, held in the backyard of her parents' house on the good side of town. Her father, a bank manager with soft hands and a harder heart, had made it clear from the beginning that he thought his daughter was making a mistake. Her mother was more subtle about it, but the message was the same. Cole Merrick wasn't good enough for their precious Lena. Maybe they were right. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Lena. It was Asher Trevin, my best friend since high school and the closest thing I had to a brother. Heard Lena's out of town? Want to grab a drink at Murphy's? I looked around the garage one more time, at the tools I'd inherited from my father and the projects that never seemed to get finished. Then I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Murphy's bar hadn't changed much since the night I met Lena. Same sticky floors, same neon beer signs buzzing in the windows, same crowd of locals nursing their drinks and their grievances. Asher was already there when I arrived, sitting at our usual table in the back corner with a pitcher of beer and that crooked grin that had gotten us both into trouble more times than I could count. "There he is," Asher said as I slid into the booth across from him. "The bachelor. How's it feel to have the house to yourself?" "Complicated," I said, filling my glass from the pitcher. "Murray stopped by earlier. Said some interesting things about Lena's trip." Asher's expression grew more serious. He was a big guy, built like the construction worker he was, with hands that could crush walnuts and a surprisingly sharp mind hiding behind his good old boy exterior. "What kind of interesting things?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I told him about the conflicting stories, about the way Murray had looked when she mentioned Lena playing cards. Asher listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or taking a sip of his beer. "You think she's cheating?" he asked when I finished. The question hung in the air between us like smoke from a cigarette. I'd been avoiding it all evening, but hearing it spoken out loud made it impossible to ignore. "I don't know," I said finally. "Maybe, probably. Does it matter?" "Course it matters. She's your wife." "Is she, though?" I stared into my beer, watching the bubbles rise to the surface and pop. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time she asked about my day or seemed to care about the answer? Asher didn't have an answer for that, and I didn't expect him to. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the jukebox play classic rock and the murmur of conversations from other tables. "So, what are you going to do?" Asher asked eventually. I thought about Lena's text, about the casual dismissal in those few words. I thought about her parents' disapproving looks and the way she'd started introducing me as my husband Cole instead of just Cole, like my relationship to her was more important than who I was as a person. "I'm going to find out the truth," I said, "and then I'm going to decide what to do about it." Asher raised his glass. "To the truth, then, whatever it costs." We clinked glasses, and I felt something shift inside me, like gears clicking into place. For 7 years, I'd been playing by Lena's rules, trying to be the husband she wanted instead of the man I was. Maybe it was time to change the game. The next morning hit me like a sledgehammer to the skull. I'd stayed at Murphy's until closing time, matching Asher drink for drink and trying to drown the growing certainty that my marriage was circling the drain. Now I was paying for it with interest, stumbling around the kitchen in search of coffee and aspirin while my brain felt like it was wrapped in cotton. The house felt different with Lena gone. Bigger, somehow, but also emptier. Her presence had a way of filling up space, demanding attention even when she wasn't actively seeking it. Without her there, I could hear the refrigerator humming and the clock ticking on the wall above the stove. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when I noticed Lena's old phone charging on the counter by the window. She'd gotten a new one last month, some fancy model with more computing power than the space shuttle, and had been meaning to recycle this one. Lucky for me, she'd forgotten. The screen lit up when I touched it, and I felt a stab of guilt. Going through your wife's phone was the kind of thing desperate, paranoid husbands did in bad movies. But then I remembered her text from last night, the casual cruelty of it, and the guilt evaporated. The phone was still logged into her social media accounts, her email, her messaging apps. It was like having a window into her secret life, and what I saw there made my coffee taste like ashes. The messages with Finn Harlow went back 3 months. Finn, I should have known. Lena's high school boyfriend, the golden boy who'd gotten a football scholarship to state and parlayed it into a career selling luxury real estate to rich folks from the city. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, handsome, educated, the kind of guy who wore suits that cost more than my truck and never seemed to have grease under his fingernails. The early messages were innocent enough. Casual hellos, reminiscing about old times, the kind of thing you'd expect from old friends reconnecting. But they got progressively more intimate, more secretive. Inside jokes, shared memories, plans to meet for coffee that turned into lunch that turned into dinner, and then, 2 weeks ago, the tone changed completely. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? Soon. Cole's working late again. He never pays attention anyway. You deserve better than that. You always did. I know, I'm working on it. I set the phone down and walked to the bathroom, where I splashed cold water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. The man looking back at me had hollow eyes and a jaw tight with anger. 7 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. Secret messages and casual betrayal. But the worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the dismissive way she talked about me, like I was some kind of inconvenience to be managed rather than a person with feelings. He never pays attention anyway. Like I was furniture, or a pet that could be ignored when it wasn't useful. I went back to the kitchen and picked up the phone again. The most recent messages were from yesterday, right before she left. Everything's set. The cabin's perfect. A whole week, just us. I can't wait. I told Cole it was a girls' trip. He bought it completely. Poor bastard. You sure you want to go through with this? I'm sure. It's time to stop pretending. This marriage was a mistake from the beginning. I screenshot every message, every photo, every piece of evidence I could find. My hands were steady as I worked, my mind clear despite the hangover. I'd always been good in a crisis, good at solving problems and fixing things that were broken. This was just another problem to solve. The cabin Finn mentioned wasn't hard to track down. A quick search through Lena's email revealed the reservation confirmation, a luxury rental on Lake Millbrook, about an hour north of town. 5 bedrooms, private dock, hot tub, all the amenities a cheating couple could want for their romantic getaway. I was still scrolling through the evidence when someone knocked on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mirai standing on my porch, wearing the same jeans from last night and a fresh tank top. Her motorcycle was parked in my driveway, chrome gleaming in the morning sun. "Morning," she said when I opened the door. "You look terrible." "Thanks. That's exactly what every man wants to hear first thing in the morning." She pushed past me into the living room, looking around like she was cataloging changes. "Lena always keeps this place so spotless. It's nice to see it looking lived in for once." She's been gone 12 hours. "Yeah, well, her influence runs deep." Mirai flopped down on the couch and put her feet up on the coffee table, something that would have given Lena a stroke. "So, did you figure out where she really went?" I showed her the phone and the messages I'd found. She read through them with growing disgust, her expression darkening with each screenshot. "Finn Harlow," she said finally. "I should have known. That guy's been sniffing around Lena since high school. Even when she was married to you, he'd show up at family gatherings and act like you didn't exist. You knew about this?" "I suspected. Lena's never been good at hiding her feelings, and she's been acting weird for months. More secretive, more critical of you. Classic cheater behavior." She handed the phone back to me. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I'd been thinking about that since I found the messages. The old Cole, the one who'd spent 7 years trying to be the perfect husband, would have confronted Lena directly, would have demanded an explanation, begged her to reconsider, maybe suggested marriage counseling. But that Cole had been played for a fool. This Cole, the one staring at evidence of his wife's betrayal and contempt, had different ideas. "I'm going to make them regret it," I said. Mirai smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely happy. "Good. It's about time you grew a backbone. What do you need me to do?" We spent the next hour planning. Mirai knew things about Lena that I'd never suspected, her insecurities, her pressure points, the things that would hurt her most. She also knew about Finn, his business dealings, his reputation in town, his weaknesses. "He's leveraged up to his eyeballs," she told me. "Bought that fancy house on Elm Street with money he doesn't have, drives a lease car he can barely afford. His whole life is about appearances, about maintaining that golden boy image." "And Lena?" "She's always cared more about what people think than what's actually true. Remember when she made you wear that awful suit to her company Christmas party? It wasn't because she thought you looked good in it. It was because she was embarrassed by who you really are." The words stung because they were true. I'd spent our entire marriage trying to become someone else, someone worthy of Lena's love and her family's approval. I'd changed my clothes, my hobbies, even my friends, all in service of an image that was never really me. "So we hit them where it hurts," I said. "Their reputations, their carefully constructed lives. We show this town exactly who they really are." "Now you're talking." Mirai stood up and stretched. "But we need to be smart about it. Lena's not stupid, and Finn's got connections. If we're going to take them down, we need to do it right." She was right, of course. This wasn't about revenge in the heat of passion. This was about justice, served cold and calculated. I'd spent 7 years being underestimated, being dismissed as the blue-collar husband who didn't matter. Time to show them what a mistake that had been. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena, a selfie of her and Finn by the lake, both of them grinning like teenagers. The caption read, "Having such a great time with the girls." I showed it to Mirai, who laughed out loud. She's not even trying to be subtle anymore. Look at that smug expression. She thinks she's got you completely fooled. Maybe I should let her keep thinking that, I said. At least for now. I typed back, "Glad you're having fun. Mirai's keeping me company." The response came back almost immediately. "What's Mirai doing there?" Decided to extend her visit. We're getting along great. There was a long pause before the next message. "Just don't let her fill your head with nonsense. You know how she is." I looked at Mirai, who was reading over my shoulder. "How you are," she repeated. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means she's worried," I said. "Good. Let her worry." I took a selfie of Mirai and me on the couch, her arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. I sent it to Lena with the caption, "Don't worry about us. We're fine." This time, there was no response. "Phase 1 complete," Mirai said. "Now what?" I looked around the living room, at the wedding photos on the mantel and the carefully arranged furniture that had never felt like home. 7 years of trying to fit into someone else's life, and for what? So my wife could run off with her high school boyfriend and laugh about how clueless I was? "Now we get creative," I said, "and we make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people they're dealing with." The game was just beginning, and for the first time in years, I was playing to win. By noon, I was feeling more like myself than I had in months. Maybe it was the clarity that came with finally knowing the truth. Or maybe it was having a plan that didn't involve trying to save a marriage that was already over. Either way, I felt energized in a way I hadn't experienced since my boxing days. Mirai had gone back to her motel to shower and change, promising to return with supplies for what she called Operation Scorched Earth. I used the time alone to dig deeper into Lena's digital life, mining her forgotten phone for every scrap of useful information. What I found was even worse than I'd expected. The affair with Finn wasn't just physical, it was financial. They'd been planning this for months, talking about starting a real estate business together, about the life they'd build once Lena dealt with the coal situation. There were discussions about joint bank accounts, about properties they wanted to buy, about a future that had no place for me in it. But the most damaging discovery was a series of voice messages Lena had sent to Finn over the past few weeks. In them, she didn't just talk about leaving me, she mocked me. My job, my friends, my family, the way I talked, the way I dressed, the way I made love to her. Nothing was off limits, nothing was sacred. "He actually thinks I'm proud to be married to him," she said in one particularly cruel message, like being a mechanic's wife is some kind of achievement. God, I can't wait to be done with this charade. I saved every message, every cruel laugh, every casual dismissal of our 7 years together. By the time I was finished, I had enough evidence to destroy both their reputations and their relationship. The question was how to use it most effectively. Mirai returned around 2 o'clock with a bag full of supplies, burner phones, a laptop, various cables and adapters, and what looked like a small surveillance camera. "Where did you get all this?" I asked. "Better you don't know. Let's just say I have friends who don't ask too many questions." She dumped everything on the kitchen table and cracked her knuckles. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we establish our narrative. Then we control the flow of information. Finally, we sit back and watch them destroy each other." Sounds complicated. The best revenge always is. But don't worry. I've got experience with this kind of thing. My ex-boyfriend thought he could play me for a fool. Turned out he was wrong. She opened the laptop and started typing, her fingers flying over the keys with practiced ease. "We're going to create a little social media storm. Nothing too obvious, nothing that can be traced back to us directly, just enough to get people talking. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Using fake accounts and anonymous tip services, we'd start spreading carefully selected pieces of information around town. A photo here, a screenshot there, always with just enough context to be damaging but not enough to be definitively traced back to us. The key is to make it look like organic gossip," Mirai explained as she worked. "People love drama, especially when it involves someone they think they know. Lena's built this perfect image of herself as the devoted wife and successful businesswoman. When that image starts to crack, people are going to want to see it shatter." We started small. An anonymous post on the town's Facebook page asking if anyone had seen Lena's girls' trip photos, since she'd been spotted at the lake with a man who definitely wasn't one of the girls. A carefully cropped photo of her and Finn together, posted to a local gossip blog with the caption, "Trouble in Paradise." Within an hour, the comments were pouring in. People who'd always been suspicious of Lena's perfect marriage, neighbors who'd noticed things, co-workers who'd seen her sneaking around. The gossip mill of our small town was efficient and ruthless, and once it got started, it took on a life of its own. My phone started ringing around 4 o'clock. First, it was my mother-in-law, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Cole, dear, I've been hearing some disturbing rumors about Lena. People are saying that she's not really on a girls' trip. You know how people talk in this town." "I'm sure it's nothing, Margaret," I said, injecting just the right amount of confusion and hurt into my voice. "Lena wouldn't lie to me about something like that." "Of course not. But perhaps you should call her, just to be sure. These rumors could be very damaging to her career." Next was Lena's boss at the real estate agency, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who'd never liked me but had always respected my honesty. "Cole, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Is Lena really at a work conference this week?" "What work conference?" I asked, letting genuine confusion creep into my voice. "She told me she was on a girls' trip to the lake." There was a long pause. "I see. And you're certain about that?" "That's what she told me. Why? Is there a problem?" "There might be. I'll need to look into this further. Thank you for your honesty, Cole." By evening, my phone was buzzing constantly with calls and messages from friends, family, and acquaintances. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true, if I was okay, if there was anything they could do to help. I played the role of the confused, hurt husband perfectly, never confirming the rumors but never quite denying them either. The beauty of it was that I didn't have to lie. I really was confused and hurt, just not in the way people thought. I was confused about how I'd let myself be fooled for so long and hurt by the casual cruelty of Lena's betrayal. But I was also something else, something that surprised me with its intensity. I was angry, not the hot, explosive anger that makes you do stupid things. This was cold, calculating anger, the kind that plans and waits and strikes when the moment is right. It was an anger that had been building for years, fed by every dismissive comment, every social slight, every moment when I'd been made to feel like I wasn't good enough. Mariah was in her element, orchestrating the social media campaign with the skill of a general commanding troops. She'd created a dozen fake accounts across different platforms, each with its own personality and posting history, all designed to look like genuine townspeople sharing gossip and observations. "The trick is to never post anything that isn't technically true," she explained as she worked. "We're not making anything up. We're just highlighting things that were already there. Lena and Finn really are together at the lake. She really did lie to you about where she was going. Her boss really doesn't know where she is. We're just connecting the dots for people." Around 8 o'clock, my phone rang with a call I'd been expecting all day. Lena's name appeared on the screen, and I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hey, babe," I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "How's the girls' trip going?" "Cole, what the hell is going on back there?" Her voice was tight with stress and barely controlled panic. "My mother just called me screaming about rumors, and Patricia left me 3 voicemails demanding to know where I am. What did you tell them?" "I didn't tell them anything they didn't already know. Margaret asked if you were really on a girls' trip, so I said that's what you told me. Patricia asked if you were at a work conference, and I said I didn't know anything about a work conference. Why? Is there something I should know?" There was a long pause, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in her head. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much damage had been done, whether she could still salvage the situation. "There's nothing to know," she said finally. "People in this town just love to gossip. I'm exactly where I said I'd be." "With the girls?" "Of course with the girls. Who else would I be with?" I looked at Mariah, who was listening to the conversation with undisguised glee. She held up her phone, showing me a photo she'd just posted to Instagram. Lena and Finn holding hands by the lake, their faces clearly visible. "I don't know," I said into the phone, "but people are saying they've seen photos of you with some guy. Finn Harlow, I think. You remember Finn, right? Your ex-boyfriend?" The silence that followed was so complete I thought the call had dropped. When Lena finally spoke, her voice was different, harder, more calculating. "I don't know what game you're playing, Cole, but you need to stop it right now. These rumors could destroy my career, my reputation. Is that what you want?" "I want my wife to tell me the truth," I said. "That's all I've ever wanted." "I am telling you the truth." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying to me for months. About where you're going, who you're with, what you're doing. Hell, for all I know, you've been lying about everything." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, quick and shallow, like she was having a panic attack. "Good. Let her panic. let her feel a fraction of what I'd been feeling since I found those messages. "I'm coming home," she said finally. "We need to talk." "Don't bother," I said. "I'm not going anywhere. But I'm not waiting around for you either. Take your time. Enjoy your girl's trip. Just remember, the truth has a way of coming out, whether we want it to or not." I hung up before she could respond and looked at Mirai, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "That was perfect," she said. "Did you hear how rattled she was? She knows she's losing control of the narrative, and there's nothing she can do to stop it." My phone immediately started ringing again. Lena calling back. I declined the call and turned off the ringer. "Phase 2 complete," I said. "What's next?" Mirai's smile was sharp as a knife. "Next, we turn up the heat. If they want to play games, let's show them what a real game looks like." She was right. We'd landed the first strike, but this was far from over. Lena and Finn thought they were clever, thought they could manipulate and deceive without consequences. It was time to show them how wrong they were. The war had begun, and I intended to win it. I woke up the next morning to find my phone buzzing with notifications. Overnight, our carefully planted seeds of gossip had grown into a full-blown scandal. The local Facebook groups were on fire with speculation about Lena's mysterious lake trip, and someone had started a thread on the town's unofficial gossip forum titled, "Real Estate Queen's Secret Getaway." But the most interesting development was a text message from Asher, sent at 2 a.m. "Dude, you need to see this. Meet me at Murphy's for breakfast." I found him in a corner booth, hunched over his phone with a cup of coffee and a plate of eggs that had gone cold. He looked up when I sat down, his expression serious. "You've been busy," he said without preamble. "Have I?" "Don't play dumb with me, Cole. Half the town's talking about your wife and Finn Harlow. The other half's talking about you and Mirai getting cozy while Lena's away. That's not a coincidence." I signaled the waitress for coffee and studied my oldest friend's face. Asher had always been able to read me better than most people, but I wasn't ready to show all my cards yet. "People talk," I said, "especially in a town this size. Doesn't mean any of it's true." "Isn't it?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I get it. If Lena's cheating on you, she deserves whatever's coming to her. But you need to be careful about how you handle this. Small towns have long memories." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that whatever you're planning, you better make sure you can live with the consequences. Because once you go down this road, there's no turning back." He was right, of course, but I'd already made my choice the moment I found those messages on Lena's phone. There was no going back to the way things were, no pretending I didn't know what I knew. The only question was how far I was willing to go to make them pay for what they'd done. "Thanks for the advice," I said, "but I think I can handle my own marriage." Asher shook his head. "That's just it, man. I don't think you have a marriage anymore. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" I was saved from answering by the arrival of the waitress with my coffee. By the time she left, Asher had moved on to talking about work, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew something was happening, even if he didn't know exactly what. After breakfast, I drove home to find Mirai waiting in my driveway, her motorcycle parked next to my truck. She was pacing back and forth like a caged animal, her phone pressed to her ear. "No, Mom, I'm not coming home early," she was saying as I approached. "Yes, I know what people are saying about Lena. No, I don't think it's any of our business." "What do you mean? What am I doing with Cole?" She looked at me and rolled her eyes. I could hear her mother's voice through the phone, shrill and demanding. The whole family was in damage control mode, trying to figure out how to handle the scandal that was threatening their golden daughter's reputation. "I have to go," Mirai said into the phone. "I'll call you later." "No, Mom, I'm not going to spy on Cole for you. Goodbye." She hung up and shoved the phone into her back pocket. "Family meeting tonight," she said. "Emergency session to discuss the Lena situation. They want me there to provide intelligence on what you're thinking and feeling." "And what are you going to tell them?" "That you're a better man than my sister deserves, and if she's stupid enough to throw away her marriage for Finn Harlow, that's her problem." She paused. "Unless you want me to tell them something else?" I thought about it for a moment. The family meeting could be useful, a chance to plant more seeds of doubt, to control the narrative from the inside. "Tell them I'm devastated," I said. "Tell them I can't believe Lena would do this to me, that I'm willing to forgive her if she comes clean and ends whatever's going on with Finn." "The wounded husband routine?" "Exactly. Let them think I'm weak, that I'll roll over and take whatever scraps of affection Lena throws my way. It'll make them overconfident, sloppy." Mirai grinned. "I like the way you think. What else?" We spent the next hour planning Phase 3 of our campaign. While Mirai played double agent at the family meeting, I would be implementing some more direct tactics. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to me directly, but enough to make Lena and Finn's romantic getaway a little less comfortable. The first target was Finn's business. As a luxury real estate agent, his reputation was everything. Wealthy clients didn't want to work with someone who couldn't keep his personal life together, who made messy scenes and caused gossip. A few well-placed phone calls to his biggest clients, a couple of anonymous tips to the local business journal, and his carefully cultivated image would start to crack. The second target was more personal. Finn's ex-wife, Rebecca, lived in the next town over with their twin daughters. According to Marai's research, she'd never remarried and was still bitter about their divorce. She might be very interested to learn about her ex-husband's current activities. "You're getting ruthless," Marai observed as we finalized the plan. "I like it. The old Cole would have just confronted them directly and demanded an explanation." "The old Cole was an idiot," I said. "He thought playing fair meant something, that being a good person would be rewarded. This Cole knows better." My phone rang. Lena again. I'd been ignoring her calls all morning, letting them go to voicemail. The messages were getting increasingly frantic, demanding that I call her back, that I stop whatever game I was playing. But I wasn't ready to talk to her yet. Let her stew in her own anxiety for a while longer. Instead, I called Rebecca Harlow. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious, suspicious of the unknown number. "Hi, Rebecca. This is Cole Merrick. I'm married to Lena Solrin. Well, Lena Merrick now. I think we met once at a school function a few years back." "Oh yes, Cole. I remember you. Is everything all right?" "That's actually why I'm calling. I was hoping you might be able to help me with something. It's about Finn." There was a pause. "What about him?" "Well, this is awkward, but I think he might be having an affair with my wife. They're together right now at some lake cabin, and I'm trying to figure out what to do about it. I thought maybe you might have some advice, given your history with him." The silence that followed was so long I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was ice cold. "That son of a dog. I should have known he hadn't changed." "So this isn't the first time?" "Hardly. Finn's been cheating since the day we got married. I just was too stupid to see it for the first few years. When I finally caught him, he promised to change, went to counseling, the whole 9 yards, but a leopard doesn't change its spots." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories." "Don't be sorry. I'm glad you called. Finn owes me 3 months of child support, and he's been dodging my lawyer's calls. Maybe it's time to take a more aggressive approach." We talked for another 10 minutes, sharing information and strategies. Rebecca was smart, angry, and had resources I didn't: lawyers, private investigators, connections in the family court system. By the time we hung up, Finn was going to have problems that went far beyond a damaged reputation. Phase 3 was in motion. Around noon, I got a call from Patricia, Lena's boss. Her voice was crisp and professional, but I could hear the anger underneath. "Cole, I need to ask you some direct questions, and I need honest answers. Is Lena really at a girls' trip this week?" "No," I said simply. "She's at a lake cabin with Finn Harlow. I have photos if you need proof." I was afraid of that. She told me she was attending a conference in the city, that it was crucial for her career development. I even approved the time off and agreed to cover her client meetings. "I'm sorry, Patricia. I had no idea she was lying to you, too." "This is a serious breach of trust, Cole. I run a professional business, and I can't have employees who lie to me about their whereabouts. There are also questions about whether she's been using company resources for personal activities." "What kind of questions?" "The cabin they're staying at was booked through our corporate account. Technically, that's theft of services. I could have her arrested if I wanted to press charges." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Lena had gotten sloppy, overconfident in her deception. She'd used company money to fund her affair, and now it was going to cost her everything. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I'm going to terminate her employment, effective immediately. And I'm going to make sure every real estate agency in the region knows why. She'll never work in this industry again." After Patricia hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring out the window at the neighborhood I'd called home for 7 years. Everything looked the same houses, the same trees, the same cracked sidewalks, but everything felt different. I felt different, stronger, more focused, more like the man I used to be before I started trying to become someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Marai. "Family meeting moved up to 6 p.m. Mom's in full panic mode. This is going to be fun." I looked at the clock. 4 hours until the family meeting, 4 hours until the next phase of the plan kicked into gear. I spent the time making more phone calls, sending more carefully crafted messages, tightening the noose around Lena and Finn's carefully constructed lies. By the time Marai left for the meeting, half the town knew about the affair. Finn's business was in ruins, his ex-wife was preparing legal action, and Lena's career was over. But we were just getting started. The real fun was about to begin. The family meeting, according to Murray's report the next morning, had been a disaster of epic proportions. Lena's parents had spent 3 hours arguing about damage control, blame assignment, and whether they should cut their losses and disown their eldest daughter entirely. Margaret had cried, Frank had raged, and the whole thing had devolved into the kind of family dysfunction that would have made a therapist rich. "Mom wanted me to convince you to take Lena back," Murray told me over coffee at my kitchen table. "She thinks if you publicly forgive her, it'll minimize the scandal and save the family's reputation." "And what did you tell her?" "That you're heartbroken but willing to consider reconciliation if Lena shows genuine remorse. Really sold the devastated husband angle." She grinned. "Dad wasn't buying it, though. He thinks you're behind the rumors somehow." "Smart man." "Not smart enough. He still thinks you're too stupid to pull off something this sophisticated." His exact words were, Cole couldn't organize a conspiracy if his life depended on it. I felt that familiar cold anger stir in my chest. Frank Solrin had never missed an opportunity to remind me that I wasn't good enough for his daughter, that I was just a blue-collar nobody who'd gotten lucky. Well, this blue-collar nobody was about to teach him a lesson about underestimating people. My phone rang. Lena again. I'd been ignoring her calls for 2 days now, letting her panic build to a crescendo. But it was time for the next phase of the plan. "Hello, Lena," I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "Cole, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. We need to talk." "Do we? Because from where I'm sitting, I think we've said everything that needs to be said." "That's not true. I know what people are saying, and I know how it looks, but it's not what you think." I almost laughed out loud. Even now, caught red-handed with overwhelming evidence, she was still trying to lie her way out of it. "Really? Then explain it to me. Explain why you told me you were going on a girls' trip while you told your boss you were going to a work conference. Explain why you're at a lake cabin with your ex-boyfriend. Explain why you used company money to pay for it." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and defeated. "How do you know all that? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I'm coming home. Tonight. We can work this out, Cole. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end our marriage." "A mistake?" The anger I'd been keeping carefully controlled finally leaked into my voice. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. This is betrayal. This is 7 years of marriage thrown away for a weekend with your high school boyfriend." "It's not just a weekend. Finn and I, we have history. We understand each other in ways that you and I never have." There it was. The truth, finally. Not an apology, not remorse. Just a casual admission that our entire marriage had been a lie. That I'd never been anything more than a placeholder. A safe choice while she figured out what she really wanted. "You're right," I said. "We never understood each other. I thought marriage meant something. I thought loyalty meant something. I thought love meant something. Turns out I was wrong about all of it." "Cole, please." "Don't. Just don't. You made your choice, Lena. You chose Finn over me, chose your fantasy over reality. Live with it." I hung up and turned off the phone. Phase 4 was about to begin, and I couldn't afford any distractions. Murray was watching me with something that might have been admiration. "You're really done with her, aren't you?" I was done with her the moment I read those messages. Everything since then has just been cleanup. Good, because she's not going to give up easily. Lena's used to getting her way, used to manipulating people until they do what she wants. When she realizes you're not going to roll over and play the forgiving husband, she's going to get nasty. Let her try. I'm not the same man she married. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Rebecca Harlow called to tell me that her lawyer had filed an emergency motion for increased child support and back payments, with interest and penalties that would cost Finn tens of thousands of dollars. Patricia had made good on her threat to blacklist Lena from the real estate industry, sending a detailed account of her misconduct to every agency within 100 miles. But the most satisfying call came from an unexpected source, Finn himself. "Cole, this is Finn Harlow. I think we need to talk." His voice was tight with stress and barely controlled anger. "Good. Let him sweat." "I don't think we have anything to talk about, Finn. You made your position pretty clear when you decided to screw my wife. Look, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. Lena and I, we have a connection that goes back years. This isn't some casual fling. You're right. It's worse. It's a calculated betrayal by two people I trusted. She's leaving you, Cole. She's going to file for divorce and marry me. Fighting it isn't going to change anything except make everyone miserable." I almost admired his directness. No apologies, no excuses, just a straightforward statement of intent. At least he was honest about being a snake. "Is that what she told you?" That she's going to divorce me and ride off into the sunset with you? I laughed. Finn, you don't know Lena as well as you think you do. She's not going to divorce me. She can't afford to. Her career's over, her reputation's shot, and her family's threatening to cut her off. I'm the only stability she has left. That's not true. We're going to start fresh, build something together. With what money? Your business is tanking, your ex-wife's lawyers are circling like sharks, and you're leveraged up to your eyeballs on that house and car you can't afford. What exactly are you going to build this new life with? The silence told me everything I needed to know. Finn was starting to realize that his romantic fantasy was colliding with financial reality. Running away with someone else's wife was expensive, especially when that someone else wasn't going quietly. What do you want, Cole? I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to stop filling her head with fantasies about a life you can't provide, and I want you to disappear from our lives permanently. And if I don't, then you'll find out just how creative a motivated mechanic can be when it comes to making someone's life difficult. Trust me, Finn, you don't want to find out. I hung up before he could respond, feeling more alive than I had in years. This was who I really was, not the accommodating husband who bent over backward to please everyone, but the fighter who'd learned to box in grimy gyms and solve problems with his hands and his brain. Murray was grinning at me from across the table. That was beautiful. Did you hear how rattled he was? He's starting to realize that actions have consequences. Both of them are. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I showed it to Murray, who laughed out loud. Finn's feeling cornered. Cornered animals do stupid things. Let him do something stupid. It'll just give me more ammunition. But even as I said it, I felt a small chill of unease. Murray was right. Cornered animals were dangerous, unpredictable. Finn had always been the golden boy, used to getting his way through charm and manipulation. When those tactics failed, he might try something more direct. I looked around my kitchen, at the house I'd worked so hard to make into a home, and felt that cold anger crystallize into something harder. Let them come. Let them try whatever desperate scheme they were cooking up. I'd been underestimated my whole life, dismissed as just another blue-collar nobody who didn't matter. Time to show them how wrong they were. The war was far from over, but I was winning. And I intended to keep winning until there was nothing left of their carefully constructed lies but ashes and regret. The final battle was coming, and I was ready for it. Lena came home on Thursday night, 3 days early and looking like she'd aged a year in the past week. I watched from the kitchen window as she sat in her car in the driveway for 10 minutes, gathering courage, or maybe just figuring out what lies she was going to tell. When she finally came through the front door, she looked around like she was seeing the house for the first time. Cole? Her voice was tentative, uncertain. Are you here? In the kitchen, I called back, not bothering to get up from the table where I'd been reading the newspaper. Local paper had picked up the story. Nothing too explicit, just a small item about marital difficulties affecting a prominent local real estate agent. But in a town this size, that was enough. She appeared in the doorway looking haggard. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her makeup was smudged, and she was wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in on social media 2 days ago. The golden girl was tarnishing before my eyes. We need to talk, she said. Do we? I turned a page of the newspaper without looking up. Because I think your actions have been pretty clear. Sometimes words are unnecessary. Cole, please, look at me. I folded the paper and met her eyes. What I saw there surprised me, not the defiance or manipulation I'd expected, but something that looked almost like fear. I messed up, she said. I know that. I hurt you, I hurt us, and I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up slowly, feeling 7 years of accumulated resentment rising in my chest. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I had to find out about your affair from your old phone? Is it fair that you used company money to fund your romantic getaway? Is it fair that you've been lying to me for months while telling your boyfriend how pathetic I am? Her face went white. You heard the voice messages. Every last one. Every cruel joke, every dismissive comment, every plan you made for a future that didn't include me. So don't talk to me about fair, Lena. You gave up that right when you decided I was nothing more than an obstacle to your happiness. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me, her hands shaking. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just reconnecting with an old friend. But then feelings got involved, and I got confused. Confused? I tasted the word like it was poison. Is that what we're calling it? Finn and I have history. We understand each other in ways that you and I never did. Yeah, you mentioned that. Question is, what are you going to do about it? She looked up at me with something that might have been hope. I want to fix this. I want to save our marriage. Finn was a mistake, a moment of weakness. You're my husband, Cole. That has to mean something. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. She still thought she could manipulate me, still believed that the right combination of apologies and promises would make me forget what she'd done. It did mean something, I said. For 7 years, it meant everything to me. But you threw it away for a weekend at the lake with your high school boyfriend. You can't just take that back. So what are you saying? That we're over? I'm saying that the marriage you're trying to save ended the moment you sent that first flirty text to Finn. Everything since then has just been clean up. She started crying then, big ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Once upon a time, those tears would have broken my heart, would have made me want to comfort her and promise that everything would be okay. But that was before I knew what she really thought of me, before I heard her laugh about my inadequacies with another man. Please, she whispered, I'll do anything. I'll cut off all contact with Finn, I'll go to counseling, I'll quit my job and find something else. Just give me another chance. You already quit your job. Patricia fired you for theft and misconduct. And as for Finn, I pulled out my phone and showed her the latest text from his unknown number. He's been threatening me. Seems to think I'm the problem in this situation. Her face crumpled. He's scared. His business is falling apart. His ex-wife is suing him, and he's facing financial ruin. He's not thinking clearly. None of that is my problem. You made your choice, Lena. Both of you did. Now you get to live with the consequences. She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Genuine desperation. What do you want from me? What will it take to fix this? I considered the question seriously. What did I want? Revenge? I'd already gotten that. Justice? The scales were pretty well balanced at this point. An apology? She'd offered several, though none of them seemed particularly sincere. What I really wanted was something she could never give me. 7 years of my life back, 7 years of building a future on a foundation that turned out to be nothing more than fog and wishful thinking. 7 years of believing in someone who never believed in me the same way. I want you to be honest, I said finally, my voice steady but colder than I expected. For once in this whole mess, just tell me the truth. Did you ever love me, or was I just a convenient placeholder until something better came along? The question drifted through the room like smoke, heavy and impossible to ignore. She froze. I could actually see the wheels turning behind her eyes, calculating, weighing, strategizing. Even now, even with her bags half packed upstairs, she was still trying to choose the version of the truth that might soften the consequences. I thought I did, she said at last, her voice soft, almost careful. When we got married, I thought what we had was enough. But being with Finn again made me realize what I was missing. The passion, the connection, the feeling of being truly understood. There it was. The truth, raw, unpolished, and exactly what I'd known all along. I felt something inside me settle. A quiet internal click, as if the final piece of a long, painful puzzle had snapped into place. Thank you, I said. Not with sarcasm, not with anger, just a tired, final sort of acceptance. For finally being honest, she swallowed. So what happens now? Now, I said. You pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. I'll file for divorce on Monday morning. We'll split our assets according to state law, and then we'll go our separate ways. Cole, please. This conversation is over, Lena, I said, standing. You got what you wanted. Your freedom, your chance to be with someone who truly understands you. Congratulations. She stayed seated for a moment, staring at the floor, maybe hoping I'd fold the way I'd always folded before, maybe just trying to process the reality that the life she thought she could step in and out of was closing behind her. Finally, she rose and walked toward the stairs. For what it's worth, she said quietly, not turning around. I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for hurting you. You deserved better than what I gave you. Yes, I said. I did. I listened to her moving around upstairs, the dull thud of drawers opening, the soft scrape of hangers, the low murmur of hushed phone calls as she looked for a place to land. Probably calling Finn, though I doubted he'd pick up. He had his own fires to deal with now. The golden boy of her teenage fantasies had discovered that adult life demanded more than charm and nostalgia. My phone buzzed. Mirai. Heard Lena's back. How'd it go? Me. About as expected. She's packing now. Mirai. Need backup? Me. No. It's over. And it was. Not with the shouting match I'd pictured 100 times, not with shattered plates or slammed doors. Just a quiet unraveling. A truth laid bare, and the sound of zippers and cardboard. 7 years ending in a way so anticlimactic it almost felt surreal. Lena came downstairs an hour later with 2 suitcases and a box of scattered belongings from our life together. She paused at the door, offering one last moment for a reversal of fate. "Goodbye, Cole," she said softly. "Goodbye, Lena." The door closed with a muted click, and suddenly the house was mine again. Bare, silent, grounding. I could hear everything now. The hum of the refrigerator, the steady tick of the wall clock, my own breathing as it settled back into a rhythm I hadn't felt in ages. For the first time in years, I was alone, and for the first time in years, it felt right. The war was over, and in the simplest, cleanest way possible, I had won. Not by force, not by rage, not by some elaborate scheme, but by stepping back and letting the truth collapse the house of cards she'd built. Lena had her freedom, Finn had his downfall, and I had something far more valuable than revenge. I had my life back. Outside, her car engine started, then faded into the distance, taking with it 7 years of compromise and illusions. Tomorrow I would rebuild, tomorrow I would begin again, tomorrow I would belong entirely to myself. But tonight I was going to sit in my kitchen, crack open a cold beer, and breathe in the quiet of a home that was finally unquestionably mine. The game was over, and victory, quiet, simple, unembellished, felt better than I ever imagined it would.